I'm a solo traveler. I've stayed in countless hostels as a means of saving money, while also meeting new interesting people. I've stayed in a total of about 20 hostels in my life, and 90% of the time I've had good experiences. My first truly awful experience, though, was at a place called Freedom Traveler Hostel. And before I begin, I want to note that my horrible experience wasn't the complete fault of the hostel itself. The Freedom Traveler Hostel is located in Rome. It was my first time ever visiting Rome. I was completely inexperienced to the landscape and relied heavily on Google Maps and locals. In fact, even finding the hostel itself proved challenging as there were no signs for the place outside. But once I found the place, I let myself in through the big brown doors and was greeted by a nice woman working the front counter. I had already booked a stay in one of the 4-person rooms. I was led to the room I'd be staying in, which had 1 bunk bed and 2 single beds, totaling sleeping space for 4 people. The room had a green theme to it, but it wasn't the biggest room. The worker told me there weren't many people staying in the hostel at the moment, which I didn't really have a problem with if it would mean I would have more privacy in the room. The woman had a smile on her face the entire time, and I appreciated her help. She showed me where I could store my luggage, which was actually just some shed in the back garden area. I wasn't impressed nor confident with it, so I decided I'd leave my luggage in the room, especially since I didn't bring anything too valuable. I was exhausted after a whole day of traveling, so after changing clothes and stowing my luggage under the bottom bunk bed, I laid down ready to take a quick power nap. Not long after, I heard a knock at the door, and 2 young men walked in. They had thick Italian accents, I could tell right away. They greeted me and started talking to me, even though I was mid-nap, but I'm polite and social, so I was friendly and chatted with them. They introduced themselves as Marco and Lucio, brothers. Marco had to be like 6'4", he was huge. Lucio was probably 5'11", but he wasn't a toothpick either, and I could see the resemblance in their faces. They were very tan, but both had receding hairlines, even though I could tell they were in their early 20s. They weren't the friendliest looking guys, but at first they seemed okay enough. After getting acquainted in English with them, the 2 brothers started to talk amongst themselves in Italian. They didn't know that I understood though, because right away I understood them to be talking about me and laughing at me. I heard, I believe, Marco describing me as some silly white boy. I could have said something right there in Italian, but instead I wanted to keep the illusion that I didn't speak the language. The 2 brothers eventually got up from their beds and left the room, with Lucio smiling and waving at me as they left. I just realized they didn't have their luggage in the room, which led me to believe they left their luggage in the storage shed in the garden area. I went to the garden area for a bit just to mingle with some of the people sitting out there, and I met a few nice tourists who were also staying there for the weekend. Then off I went to explore the city, heading in the direction of city center. After many hours and 2 food stops later, I returned to the hostel expecting some people to be socializing in the lounge area or in the back garden, but there was no one. So I figured I'd just get some early shut-eye. It was 9 p.m. anyway. I don't remember when I fell asleep, but I remember waking up. The lights in the room were still off, but I heard whispering voices. The brothers were back. I didn't move. I listened to what they were saying, still speaking in Italian. One of them whispered something that roughly translated to, "Just grab it, or are you gonna do it?" I didn't know what it meant, but I had a feeling they were talking about my luggage. I was waiting to hear the sound of my luggage being moved before I would let them know I was awake, but instead, I felt a sweet-smelling, cold and wet cloth being pressed up to my face, and I reacted by yelling and swatting it off my face. I turned to see one of the brothers standing over me. I screamed, "What are you doing?" The man over me, I couldn't tell which one it was, then got on the lower bed with me and tried to subdue me, but I kicked him off and screamed for help. The other brother pulled him away from me, and the 2 men took off out of the room. I quickly grabbed my bag and shoes and went to the front desk for help. The man who was working now said he saw the 2 guys leave, but there was no information on them even staying there. They were 2 random locals who were trying to rob visitors to the hostel. They tried to literally chloroform me. I didn't stay there after that, of course. I'm sure they've upped their security now, but when I stayed there, clearly anybody could have just walked right in. If I wasn't awake, I would have been chloroformed and robbed of my entire bag. After this, I started being more careful of the hostels I stay at.